get your business valued. I think it's kind of a funny one. I mean, it's planned. There's a lot that you could say, but the thing is, even in family business transitions, one side thinks it's worth this, the other side thinks it's worth this. They're both thinking they're giving in or treating the other side well, and both are disappointed if you can have a third party say, like, this is what it's worth.
Because that gives,
then you can plan for it all.
Exactly, you can plan for it. That's the thing.
Welcome to the How to Buy or Sell a Business Successfully podcast. The concepts discussed in this podcast are for informational purposes only. No attorney-client relationship is intended or formed by this podcast. No legal advice is intended in the substance of this podcast. Feel free to check out our website, www.goforemanlaw.com. Enjoy the show and welcome your hosts, Jake Wayman and Sam Foreman.
Welcome back to How to Buy and Sell a Business Successfully podcast. Got it right this time. My name is Jake Wayman, and my wife and I are the proud owners of the Orange Theory Fitness Studios here in Wichita. I also serve as a fractional business development executive for a couple companies, helping them grow their top line revenue. One of them is my family's company, Citywide Facility Solutions. You need commercial cleaning, call them. And then Infinity Capital Partners, they are a middle market investment bank out of Oklahoma City. And best thing going on in my life right now is, I've talked about this previously, my daughter, who's 2, is in gymnastics and she loves it. And she's graduated and she's getting, more into this and everything. But it's funny that every time we're at home and she kind of gets on something that's like narrow, she'll put her arms out like this and like walk through it like she's on the balance beam, and it's so cute. So it's a ton of fun. I love seeing my kids grow up, and it's just so cool that they bring me so much joy. But I am joined by my amazing co-host, as always, Sam Foreman.
Thanks, Jacob. My name is Sam Foreman. I'm the founder of Foreman Law. One of the best things in my life right now is seeing my kids start to reflect some of the things that we've been trying to teach them as parents. Our 3-year-old has been rather difficult, as 3-year-old boys tend to be. I was not a difficult 3-year-old. I think I was an impossible child, just in general. But the other day, I got hurt or something, and our 3-year-old said, "I'm sorry that happened to you, Dad." And it very empathetic, which is not his default mode.
Yeah.
And so it was just, man, it was so encouraging to hear that come out of his mouth. So, which was really nice. So that's one of the best things going on in my life right now. We're really grateful to be joined by Daniel White from AGH today. Daniel works with family businesses. He works on succession planning, exit planning. And Daniel, thank you for joining us today. If you would tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and some of the best things going on in your life right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to do it. I'd known both of you guys for a couple years, more than a couple years.
Yeah.
So glad to be able to be on here and chat with y'all. So I'm over at AGH, which is an accounting and advisory firm. I'm on the advisory side. So I lead up our organization development efforts. So like you said, it's everything from working with family businesses to succession and exit planning to strategy and board and governance work. So there's a lot of different things that I get to do. All of it's around just helping grow and create healthy organizations, though. So it's a lot of fun that I get to work with a lot of great people, a lot of great organizations. So what's going on in my life? A good thing in my life. On the way here, I actually got a call from my 4-year-old son. He's just turning 4. And he was crying because he really wants to play with his Lego set.
Yeah.
And there's a backstory. When I was a kid, loved Legos, and I would save all my money for Legos.
Yeah.
And so I had these castle sets and things. And 2 years ago, my younger brother, for my birthday, compiled the whole old set, got all the pieces together, and gave it to me.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So it's been in storage, but then he's old enough now that I'm like, okay, I'll bring it out. And so I only let him play with it when he's supervised at this point, because he's
especially if it's
just turning 4. Yeah. They're so small enough that
Yeah.
So he really, really wanted to play with a Lego set. So he was calling me to ask permission.
Yeah, that's great.
And did he cry because you said no?
No, he was crying because he wanted it so bad.
That's
Yeah.
great. I love it.
We have a lot of Legos at our house. In fact, I think if you walk into my 8-year-old's bedroom at night with your feet off, you're taking your life into your own hands.
Yeah.
But the other day, our 3-year-old brought some Legos into the kitchen. And he's like, "Dad, will you take these apart for me?" So I took it apart and I handed him back, the pieces. He only wanted one of the 2 pieces, so he just promptly chucked the other one on the floor. And I was like, "Hayes, you have to go put that away. Come pick that up." So finally he comes over, he picks it up, he goes over to the trash, and he throws it in the trash. Like, "You can't do that." He's like, "I didn't want that. I don't want it anymore." There were some life learning moments that happened in there. Legos. Teach your children well. Yeah. This is the Lego takeover episode. Speaking of putting the pieces together. All right. See that transition?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Daniel, tell us a little bit about the importance of getting a business ready for an exit, and how long does that process take? I mean, do you have folks that come to you and like, "Hey, I'd like to sell in the next 3 months, 6 months"? What does that look like, and what is kind of the timeline that you recommend for folks to look at?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a lot of people will, especially to their attorney, will come and say, "Hey, I just got an LOI. Can you help me?" Or, "I want to sell. I just had a health issue or something happened, and I need to be done by the end of the year in 3 months or 6 months," which is not great for preparation, right? So we often recommend at least 2-3 years in advance. If you're planning to exit, to start to begin to do all of that, because from an accounting side, as you guys know, they're going to look at 3 years trailing financials typically.
Right.
So you want to get all of that. If you're like a C Corp and you need to convert to an S Corp, you need 5 years to do that. So at least 2 to 3 to 5 years can really help. And there's a lot that you can be done in that time to help drive value. So
when you're talking about financials and how a buyer is going to look at those, I mean, are a lot of sellers preparing their financials to be attractive to a buyer? Are they optimizing to show income, or are most of sellers, when they come to you, have they been running their business to minimize taxes, which usually goes along with minimizing income?
Exactly. Yeah. So the smart ones will have been thinking of that. Most people, not knowing how a business is valued, will be minimizing income taxes, and so they're going to be running personal things potentially through the business. We're not the IRS, but things. There's a lot of things that they're going to do to minimize the income, which then is going to minimize the value, obviously.
Yeah. And is that something that, even if they come to you, like you mentioned, like the health scenario, for example, where something happened, they weren't ready, this wasn't part of the plan, but now it's part of the reality that there's some external timeline that's been imposed on them just through facts of life, where they've been running to optimize for their own personal lifestyle, minimizing taxes. Is that something that you all can still help with, that a good team can still help with through, what does that look like? Is it like add backs, or, just what does that process look like even under those circumstances?
Yeah. So the way that I approach things, really in any scenario, is really starting with a lot of information gathering and really trying to understand what's happening, what's going on, what's important to the owners, to the different key stakeholders, because oftentimes the driving founder may have one view, and maybe his key people or wife or others might have very different perspectives or goals. And so understanding what's important to them, what are the goals, and then what are we faced with here, allows you then to figure out what's the right next steps.
Well, and with AGH, I mean, because you all are an accounting firm and advisory, so I mean, you're involved with this organization almost the entire lifespan for the most part. I mean, because you're in there doing their accounting work, taxes, bookkeeping, what have you, and then also on the advisory side of it. So when you're working with these organizations, how often are you experiencing is that it's more becomes the sell is up something that has to happen because of a health issue, something unexpected, versus like actually planning and preparing for it? I mean, is it more seeing it from the front end of like, no, it's something's pushing them to sell? I mean, it's like, what's the kind of the proportion of that?
No, I think it's a good question. I mean, a lot of the people I work with may or may not be, firm clients from the accounting side.
Yeah.
But even if they are, like most of those people are not actively planning, even though advisors may be saying, hey, you kind of need to start
Mhm.
planning. And too often people are just, they're 65 and they know they need to do something. They're 70, they're 75,
Mm-hmm.
and they just continue to wait.
Yeah.
And even with people pushing on them. And so that's the real problem that I encounter the most, is that you have business owners that in their mind know that they need to start planning and start doing things differently,
Mm-hmm.
but they just aren't taking any action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
do you feel like that diminishes value over time? So like say if they do
Oh,
wait
yeah.
there, I mean,
Right.
are they causing some substantial impact on the value of their business?
Oh, for sure. Because one of the huge drivers of value is having a strong management team
Mm-hmm.
that is able to continue on moving forward. And oftentimes it's not just, I haven't decided to sell or not, or how I'm going to sell. It's, I have not relinquished a lot of my roles and
Mm-hmm.
duties. And so they have a management team that's kind of treading water. And sometimes they end up leaving because, I mean, it's not a secret. That's the thing, is a lot of business owners, they say, well, if I start talking about this topic, then everyone's going to jump ship because they think something's going to happen. And what they don't really realize is everyone like looks at you. They know you're 75. They know something's,
Yeah.
and it's actually a much bigger
Life has an
concern.
exit plan for you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
That
like you're going to exit at some
You're
point in
not
time.
dealing with this.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
need, like, the fact
Right.
that you're not addressing it actually is causing
Yeah.
people to probably run
Yeah.
away from it.
Mhm.
So on that, one question is you work with both generational companies, so family
Mhm.
companies, but then also just private companies like a single entrepreneur who
Yes.
started a business. So what's the biggest hurdle that you see that within generational companies, like within family companies that, because an exit will happen, there's going to be some generational transfer there, but like, what are some of the hurdles that you see that they run into that comes up quite often?
Yeah, with the family-owned companies, a lot of times there's a lot of other things that are thrown in there about what from the next generation, what's expected of me, what's not expected of me.
Yeah.
Should I be here? Do I want to be here? Um, Parents feeling like, oh, we want to keep this in the family, or we're not sure. We're not sure if our kids are up for this. And so there's just a lot of other baggage that's in there. It's not just like, do I trust this manager that I worked with for a while? It's like this parental guilt, like we're talking about, or things we want to raise our kids, like you said, in the right
Mhm.
way. And then you're feeling guilty that maybe they're not ready yet, or there's all this other family
Mhm.
baggage that's kind of clouds things up
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of other things that have to be dealt with in
Mhm.
family-owned businesses. too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talked a little bit about the value of a management team,
Yeah.
like in a business, and why is that important to a buyer if they're looking at the business versus a business that still has a
Yeah.
heavy integration from the owner?
Yeah. So if you haven't picked up on it, I view things a lot from like the psychology side of things
Mhm.
a little bit. And what happens is, like, as humans, we feel really good that we've built something
Mhm.
and that people rely on us, and that like
Mhm.
I am an integral part of this company. And so that's the way founders like have grown up for the last 40
Mhm.
years in their business, feeling great that like I have built this company and they still need me. But
Mhm.
it's the exact opposite of what's needed when you're trying to exit, because building a successful company that's going to outlast you means you've built a company that doesn't need you at all,
Mhm.
right? Because in a typical founding company, if you have all of the relationships with all of the key customers and vendors, if you know all of the expertise and haven't passed on any of the tribal knowledge, if everything is centered around you and then you sell and walk out the door,
Mm-hmm.
what's left? There's like nothing.
Right.
So it's there's no value there.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
We've talked before about this idea that some people just hold on too long to where they get
Mhm.
into the business gets into a period of decline before
Right.
they start to sell. What are some ways that business owners could start to identify that? Oh, okay, this is something where I'm starting to maybe reach the peak of the business, or maybe I'm just a little bit past it, but I'm still in kind of that zone to where they could take some really intentional action as opposed to getting surprised with the reality of like, oh, this isn't what it used to be. And
Yeah.
I got to get out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as with anything, it's hard to time the market and to
Right.
know when are we going up or down. My main recommendation there is go ahead and like figure out a plan, because as long as you have a plan, you can always figure out when do I want to pull the cord or not. But if I don't have any plan, then I don't have that option.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that inactivity from business owners comes from, this is a hard decision. It impacts me personally about my worth and my value. It's maybe a hard decision I have to make about my kids, or and then it's also, I don't have a lot of education, so I don't really know what my options are. And so all of that, like, I just don't know. I don't know. So it just causes people just to keep treading water and doing the same thing, because that's the easiest thing, instead of making a hard decision or going down the only route they may think they have, which might be to sell third party, which isn't always their only thing.
It feels like a theme I'm picking up on is that there's a lot of personal identity that's wrapped up in being a business owner for a lot of folks, especially in the small business space.
Yeah.
What are some things that people can start to do, or just some initial action steps that they could start to take to just, start having that conversation with themselves, but maybe start to transition their personal identity away from, who equals do to, I'm a person, independent of, and I have worth independent of, and identity independent of, who I am as a business owner.
Yeah, it's a personal journey. Some people are up for it. Sometimes people aren't, but definitely the saying I like to say is that for a founder to exit successfully, they really need to feel like they're being pulled out rather than pushed out. So instead of them feeling like, oh, I have to leave because my kids don't want me here anymore, or they want to take over, or whatever it might be, that's feeling pushed out. They're always going to resent that, or feel like they want to come back in. If they can be pulled out by, I'm excited about going to do this, or finding a new role and something else, that's often very helpful, is for somebody to figure out, what is it outside of my business that I want to invest my life in? Is it grandkids? Is it charity work? Is it starting another business even? Or is it even just being pulled out into a different role in the company and then creating the space for other people to step up?
Right. We had a guest on earlier who talked about the void, about people they haven't given themselves something to gravitate identity around, to gravitate purpose towards, and as a result, there's just this gap, this space, and then so they don't have something, like you said, to pull them forward into a new chapter in life. And so that leads to all kinds of negative outcomes. Is that a process that you help people with, or somebody on your team helps people with, or where would somebody start to really do some of that in some instances, very hard personal work to create more clarity around that?
No, it's difficult. I will at times help people. Oftentimes I might bring in more of a psychologist that can help work one-on-one with somebody. But it's not just for business owners, it's for most anybody in life. Have either of you guys read the Arthur Brooks From Strength to Strength?
I have not.
I have read the title of it.
Okay. That one deals with it just for, people in general. And he talks about going from like the doing sort of phase to kind of the teaching sort of phase, if I paraphrase it, and finding worth and value in that. So there's resources out there, but really, if you look at it again, sociologically, like, people are living a lot longer. And so before, when, you might work until you're 60 and then die in the 50s, like, now people are living until 80, 90, 100. And so they, instead of having like one career, they might have two careers, or they might have like even a third act. And so it's something that society, I think, as a whole is dealing with, not just business owners.
Sure.
Well, and kind of when you're talking about transitions, whether it be generational or, you're selling to a third party, when you're involved with working with the organization and preparing them for the sell, like what are you helping them to make sure that, the continuity of culture, clients, key employees, whether it kind of really makes whatever value that business has created, what are you doing to help transition that value to the next owner, whether it be, the son or the daughter, or it could be the third party that you're selling to as well?
Yeah. Um, the first step is understanding what do we have and where are our risks, where are our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got, from a legal standpoint, a bunch of client contracts that are non-transferable or all that legal
Mhm.
stuff, I mean,
Lawyers are the
identifying
worst.
that.
Yeah, go on.
Lawyers. uh, and then with key employees, it's also figuring out how do we make sure that they want to stay, that they're incentivized to stay, that they have a clear idea of what the future looks like for them. So again, golden handcuffs or incentive
Mhm.
compensation is great there. And then the culture, um, oftentimes the next generation is really similar, or maybe they might want to change the culture a little bit, and
Mhm.
they're waiting for that. Um, and a new buyer might come in and have a similar or very different culture, and that
Mhm.
can make or break the deal, as you guys
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
on those things. So if there's already an identified buyer, it's really helping to understand how is the culture going to fit or not fit, and are there some opportunities or potential concerns with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious, like when it comes to like family business transitions,
Mhm.
especially, I mean, those have such a unique dynamic, or at least they can. Sometimes you've got kids in the business, kids that aren't in the business, a blend of both, and all of those things. And um, when we talk about 2 to 3 years lead time for transition, does that time work well for like family business transitions as well, or do those require a longer lead time in some instances based on setting everyone's expectations and everything else? Talk to us a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, that they can definitely be more complicated
Hmm.
because if you're just preparing to sell to a third party, then you're kind of, washing your hands of it.
Hmm.
That's a little different than we're trying to set up the next generation to
Right.
succeed. And if you're moving from one founder owner
Hmm.
to now three siblings that are going to have to work together, oftentimes you're having to set up new governance systems,
Hmm.
new expectations, new
Mhm.
ways of even
Hmm.
running the business.
Right.
Because what worked with just the dad figure or the mom figure, now having three siblings that have to work together
Yeah.
and run a
Hmm.
business,
Yeah.
there's things that have to change from
Right.
just a governance
Right.
and other standpoint. So,
Right. Well,
well,
and when you add to that, sorry, go ahead, Jacob.
Well, you lead on that. I got
Yeah.
another question that's gonna be totally
Yeah.
different.
I mean, when you add to that sometimes you've got folks that, they've got kids that aren't involved in the business.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have a role or an ownership stake, or their stake in it's going to look just completely different. And then you can, what I've seen is the most challenging is when people don't like even talk about it.
Yeah.
They don't set the expectations, and then everybody starts running with different assumptions about what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
you get down. Talk to me. Let me. You've seen more of those instances, I'm
Mhm.
sure, than I
Yeah.
have. But talk to me about what that can do to family harmony dynamics, do to the business, and how do you, what advice you have for people to be in a more positive, more healthy place than maybe some of that.
Yeah, from the ownership transfer side, it can get really tricky quickly
Mhm.
because if you have kids working in the business and kids not working in the
Mhm.
business, and if the company is being gifted to the kids,
Mhm.
the question that you really have to dive down into is this a gift, as in
Mhm.
an inheritance,
Mhm.
as in all kids should probably get an equal inheritance, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like just because I'm a kid
Right.
means that I get my equal portion of the
Yeah.
inheritance,
Right.
versus is this something that has been earned through
Mhm.
work in the business, which would be more of a bonus or something
Right.
that you could think about.
Right.
A key employee that's been with me for 20 years, I might
Yeah.
bonus some
Right.
equity.
Yeah.
And if the parents and the kids and different siblings are on
Mhm.
different pages, you get
Right.
some real hurt feelings and frustrations if the kid that's worked for 20 years gets gifted the same amount as the kid that's off in Hawaii surfing.
Like
That's the
So kind of on that, I mean, would something that looks successful, is that would almost be the next generation purchasing it from it. So say there's a one of the kids is working in the business, but the other one surfing in Hawaii, for an example. But the one who's working the business, allowing them to actually buy it. And so whatever, when the trend, like having that more instead of it being an inheritance, I mean, is that probably a better methodology to go about doing that? And that's also one of my questions was going to be like, what does a successful transition look like? When you've seen what's like, because you've been around success stories and probably also some failures too. So what would a successful transition look like?
Yeah, so in that case, a successful transition in my mind, it can take all sorts of different looks from the technical side, but success would be that everyone is on the same page with like expectations. Like I know that I have 1/3 of this company now, and it is because I was gifted it and not because of anything I did in the business.
Yeah.
Or I now have a third of this, or I was gifted a third and I purchased a third through bonuses I earned in the company. Every family is different in kind of what they believe is right or fair, and so there's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
But if everyone's on a different page about, am I being gifted this and what does it mean, or did I actually earn this?
Right.
That's where you really get some
Because
conflict.
you could run into instances where, like you said earlier, where there's differences in expectations, where somebody decides, like you used the example of somebody who's been there for 20 years, right? And you've got somebody that has maybe viewed themselves, rightly or wrongly, but they viewed themselves as having stuck it out for the family
Right.
and having contributed to the value that's been created. And as in some instances, maybe taking below market compensation under this expectation that's never been expressed or written down that they're going to get the company or get a big piece of the company or whatever. And then if you run into like the rubber meets the road and now the parents are like, everybody gets an equal piece.
Right. That can really harm family dynamics.
Right.
And often there's maybe even a divide between mom and dad of what do we want to do? What's the right thing?
Yeah.
Right. And so it feels like if you're a listener in your family business and you're thinking about this, first off, call Daniel. But is be on purpose, right? And get out in front of this. Don't wait till like you're okay, now it's time. If your family is involved in the business and they are going to make long-term life choices based on expectations, you owe it to them and yourself and family harmony for generations to be on purpose and be clear. Because if people know what the rules are, then they can make decisions about like, okay, that's how that's going to work. Great. I don't have to do that. I can go do something else, and that's okay. I can go be the surfer kid in Hawaii because I know it's not going to change the outcome, or I can negotiate better compensation with the company or whatever else. But when it's unexpressed, then it's so much more likely that it's going to be unmet.
100%.
Yep. You mentioned earlier kind of the psychological aspect of things. Do you find especially that when people need to do that deep personal work on a personal identity level to get ready for that transition, that there's resistance to, especially among folks that might be, baby boomer generation, to working with somebody that's a psychologist, because that's not that's a thing that sick people do or what have you.
Yeah.
Is that something you've observed? And
yeah, for sure. Sometimes if they can go to a life coach instead, or somebody that helps just figure out, it's really about help me figure out what you want to do in the future. And it's not that you're sick, or it's just helping you work through things yourself. So it doesn't have to be a psychologist, but definitely having a third party help you think through and work through what do you want and what's important to you and where is that even rooted in can be really helpful.
Right. No, that's really good. I mean, if you're listening, it's not something you do because you're sick. It's something you do because you're smart. And you have the opportunity to put yourself in a position to get what you really want, and working with somebody that's got experience helping you unlock that could be really, really powerful for you. So, Jacob, I think you had another question there.
Well, and it's just because I know with AGH has been in the community for long time.
It is so old, you all. No.
Well, and you've been working in the organization for quite some time too, as well. So you've seen a lot of different things. You've seen Wichita evolve and change. We're all three of us are kind of involved in this new, the next leadership of Wichita, they're starting to pick up a little bit of some M&A activity. So what kind of excites you for, what's on the horizon for Wichita when it comes to these business transitions that are happening? Like, I know that's kind of a broad question, but I mean, is there something that you're seeing that's kind of different than what's been done in the past?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about, as we know, just even nationally, there's a lot of baby boomers that have built great companies that are now starting to think about what's next. And I think there's a lot of great machine shops and all sorts of other things that entrepreneurs here, because it's really an entrepreneurial city, have developed. And so what my hope is that we together as a community can come together to help them transition well and help them stay local. Because too often, if you don't plan, something happens, you just close the doors. It's easier sometimes to do that.
Right.
Or you sell and then it gets outsourced somewhere else. I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to drive local businesses and continue to keep it locally.
Yeah, very good.
That's great.
Jake and Sam here.
Thank you for joining us. If you find this content helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and especially leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or iTunes. Really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, 1 star, it's on Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely on me.
Jacob, I'm curious for what your answer to that question would be.
My
Yeah.
Oh, so we're gonna throw this back on.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what excites me the most is that M&A is actually being talked about. It's actually being brought to the forefront, because so many times it feels like M&A activity in Wichita was done behind closed doors. Not a lot of people knew the activity was happening. A lot of transitions were happening, but now it's actually being talked about. And it's showing that there is more opportunity for people like us here that actually could be in a position to purchase a company if we'd like to. And I think that's where there's so many opportunities for, aspiring entrepreneurs to be able to find those companies that are looking to exit and transition. And I just think that's what I'm excited about, is the fact that we're actually creating that network in Wichita to be able to do it, because it's not like you have to know certain people to get tapped in. We're creating a network that's, accessible to people, to be educated on it, so we can make successful transitions happen, so we can try to keep these businesses local. Sometimes the perfect buyer for you may not be local, but I think there are opportunities for businesses to transact locally here in town too. So I think that's what excites me, is just the fact that we are talking about it. We've started this podcast. We have our ICT Dealmakers group that we're working on too. And just, that work that AGH is doing is just really getting more embedded into the team you guys are building out at AGH too as well, to support those efforts as well. Sam, what's your response to that question?
What am I most excited about on M&A and the Wichita region? I think a lot of those same things. There's a lot of reasons that there's a lot of deal flow activity that can happen here in the community. And I think that what I feel like I'm starting to see is more normalization around the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel, earlier you mentioned the resistance that people have to even talking about it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of barriers to it. And those are very real, very human things. And I get it. But I think we're starting to see some of that transform. And I'm really excited about that, because people who especially have spent their entire lives building something that matters deserve to have a great transition and a great exit. And I know that those don't happen on accident. Usually those happen with purpose, and that beautiful things happen for their teams, for their families, for the employees and the employees' families and the community as a whole when great transitions happen. I mean, you can change somebody's family story, not only at the ownership level, but at the employee level for generations when you have a good transition.
Yep.
And if you have a bad transition, you can change somebody's story for generations. But I get excited that we're seeing more, I think more experience, more activity, more sophistication. And I think that's a good segue into a question I'm curious for your take on, Daniel, is, we see a lot of folks that, they have, blood, sweat, tears. They have, worked their way through the grind to really grow their business. And they've done it with a team of advisors who have helped them get there. But their advisors, like their tax advisor, for example, might be somebody that, great bookkeeper, does a lot of great work on kind of, everyday small business run-of-the-mill tax and things like that, but may not be like an M&A advisor, for example. And the same thing may apply to their attorney and their other advisors. And as folks look at their deal process and they think about getting ready, do you see that? Do you feel like people feel like, hey, what got me here is going to get me there? Do you feel like you see people starting to identify like, hey, I might need to bring in a specialist here? What do you feel like that looks like for folks?
Yeah, well, I think as you both know and talk about, like having a great advisor team is really important to making a deal work well. Oftentimes, like you said, you have people, business owners that have worked with and grown and really trust their advisors.
Right.
And so as a firm and AGH and me specifically, we really feel like we want to work with the advisors that the person wants to work with, right? That there's the trust. So I think oftentimes in the community, it can feel like, oh, well, I don't know that we can work with that person because they have one competing service with what we do, right? Which is hard. And a lot of my clients have other CPAs, have other people that they trust. And so as long as they feel good about them and they're providing good service, I love working with those people. And often what we do is actually bring in a specialist to help with one specific piece. So if their CPA hasn't done a lot of, state and local tax sort of work, and we can come in and do some due diligence and see, is there any sort of risk here or whatever, or a tax structuring of somebody who does M&A deals all the time. We love to partner with who the business owner wants to work with. But if you get somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing as much, you can have some pretty serious consequences. And I was going to share this example later, but I'll share it now because it's, I think, very pertinent. We were doing a deal just even a couple months ago, working with their local CPA and selling. It was a $6 million business, so decent size, but not like a humongous one. And they were happy to keep with the current CPA. We came in at kind of at the last minute looking at some tax structuring that we could do for the deal. And in like the last 2 weeks, we were actually able to save them $500,000 of in their pocket savings on a $6 million deal. Just through coming in with a not a novel, crazy approach, but something that's real money, $500,000 on a $6 million deal. That's like the cost. So if you're a business owner, you kind of have to ask yourself, am I willing to give up $500,000 of this hard-earned money because I like the person that I'm dealing with and I don't want to hurt their feelings of maybe bringing in a specialist to support them? It's not insignificant in like the impact of your advisors on the team.
Well, because like at the end of the day, you don't want to either have seller remorse or buyer remorse. And because you learn after the fact that, I should have brought on that specialist, for an example. Like, again, when people are selling their business, for an example, some people think that we were talking about this earlier in the podcast, is they feel like, well, I built this business. I'm the one who built this, all the way to the place it is now. So I should be able to sell this business. And so they feel they can go do it on their own. And then they take their eye off the ball of actually running their business, and that the value diminishes in their organization. So once due diligence comes about, the buyer's like, whoa, like, what happened? You were at this in revenue projections, and now you're down to here. What happened is because they took their eye off the ball. And I think that is surround yourself with the right advisors, because most times when people are transacting in a business, especially in Wichita in the small business realm, the person's probably only going to sell their business once in their life. And then most times, maybe with the buyer, they're only going to buy a business once in their life based on kind of what some of the transactions we're involved with. And so it's like, you want to make sure you do it right, because if you only do it once, make sure you do it right and have the right people around you.
Because once you've closed, there's usually not a redo. But
you mean it's not like a car warranty?
Oh, don't get me started. Or do. But no. I mean, Daniel, when you see advisors that, like historical advisors that, have taken on the responsibility for their clients, advisors who may not like focus or have expertise in M&A, for example, but they have taken on that engagement with their client to walk them through that process. Do you feel like it's usually one where the advisor has, set good expectations with their client, or is it that, hey, when they got started in their practice, there was a lot more generalization, and that was the expectation. Because it feels like to me that over the last, I'll say especially 15 to 20 years, which makes me sound like I've been at this so much longer than I have, but that the whole process has gotten much more complicated than maybe it used to be, even at the small business level.
Right.
But that there's advisors who may not have, just because it's the natural course of things, may not have made that mental transition yet. It's a more complicated process than it used to be. Do you feel like that's a part of it? Is just not in it enough to know how much it's changed, or is there something else behind that willingness to say, hey, yeah, I can do that? Because they do have those trust-based relationships. They do love and care about their clients. They want to see them have great outcomes.
Right.
But they're accepting these engagements often from a position of inexperience. And,
Right.
I'm doing a lot of talking and not enough listening and question asking. But
I don't know. I think it just goes back to human nature again. Like it's hard to admit or to just raise your hand and say, hey, I'm probably not like good at this, or I don't know enough about this. You should probably hire somebody else. Right. That feels hard for any advisor.
100%.
So I think I have a lot of grace for anybody like that.
Right.
That it's hard to raise your hand, which is why I think it's important for those of us who are more specialized to be able to come in and say, hey, look, I don't want to step on your toes. I want to help how I can. How can I be of service to you and the client, and do it in a less threatening way?
Yeah.
I think that's so wise, and because these aren't bad people. These aren't bad people that are like taking on these engagements. These are people that value the outcomes for their clients, that work really hard to help them get there, want to see them be successful. And you're absolutely right. It's hard to say like, hey, I don't know enough about that. I remember earlier in my career just how hard that was, and I had to make some mistakes on things where it's like, okay, well, I can't bill for that because that learning took way too long, and probably shouldn't have accepted that or whatever. To know that it's like, nope, I want to focus, I want to specialize, and that's the nature of my practice. But that's not the right fit for everybody, and so
and it's they want to help, right? It's like I want to help you solve this, and so and I think everyone often, which is why I think this is so great, people aren't educated enough.
Right.
Business owners, advisors, everybody, we all need to continually learn more. In one deal, there was a guy out, from like Wyoming, and he sent a deal into this guy, and if it would have been no advisors there, I think it might have been accepted. But this guy wanted to do a handshake deal and have no money down and all finance. It was a crazy good deal for the buyer. And if you're not educated, and he was shocked, honestly, that like we turned him down right away because he's been doing this deal with all sorts of people.
Right.
So it's not like it's his one and only deal, or that he's even trying to con people. It's like he's figured out a way to make a deal work for him, and business owners that are ready to be done are willing to go with it because they don't know any better.
Yeah. And that is the hard part is you went and you hear the horror stories around, or that's a bad way to say horror story, but like you hear those stories after the transaction been done, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, you feel for them because they could have gotten more for their business, better, better terms, those sort of things. We had a client we're working with who competitor came in and put an offer on the table for him. And it sounded good because the number was big, but when you looked at the terms that they allowed, I was like, no, walk away from that, because they're giving no cash up front. There's a earn out on the back end of it, and like all these different things. And the business owner was just at the very end, was like, thank you. Like I didn't, because they've never done it. They didn't know what they were looking for. This was just a really large competitor to them. And they were like, oh yeah, but they were sophisticated. This was a large competitor that buys businesses all the time. And that's where I think so many of these business owners, they're just tired, and they're just, and they haven't spent enough time to build a network of professionals outside of there to work with,
Right.
whether it be, from accounting perspective or attorney perspective. But, that's what we want to avoid in this community. That's why I think it's so powerful with what we're trying to do here is just bring that education out there. So like when
Yeah.
you are ready to transition, there are people there to help you. They
Right.
want to help you.
Right. Well, and it's such a a constant learning process. I mean, I feel like I'm learning something new every day
Mhm.
on this stuff, and I'm in it
Right.
every day. And I think that at the end of the day, it's like you're building your team around people, whether it's the people you've been working with for 20 years or 30 years or whatever, who are always willing to put you first as a client, and who are looking for, their role is not to displace somebody. I mean, like I've always felt comfortable with your approach on stuff because for me personally, relationships are such a critical thing. I never want to
Mhm.
make a referral to somebody that I think is going to come out and like push out somebody's important, trusted relationship.
Mhm.
And so it's like those people that come in and are like, "Hey, I'm here to help the client. How can I support you in your role as their primary tax
Yeah.
advisor in this particular specialty area?" And
Yeah.
and if you're a business owner and you're looking at, do you have the right team and all that other stuff? I mean, I think it gives your advisors such a freedom to give you the best results if you go to them with the ask of, "Hey, walk me through what your role is in this. What sort of additional resources do we need to equip you with so that you're successful in your role?" As opposed to going to them with, "Hey, can you do this?" Because we're all wired to figure out how to try to say yes a lot of times,
Mhm.
and we're going to feel that pressure to take care of our clients and all that other stuff, and you can frame it differently in a way that gives your team just this whole freedom to help you build the perfect team, the best
Mhm.
team around what you need, and to go add on, hey, I really would like some additional backup on the M&A tax piece or on the M&A legal piece or whatever that is, as opposed to feeling like it's now your expectation that they need to figure out how to fulfill on to
Mhm.
go and deliver those services
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, as we had that, a recent guest, was one of his advice to buyers was, he said, don't forget that seller's dignity is part of the deal.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
again,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
when you have a buyer of business, if it's one like a professional business buyer, like private equity or something like that, I mean, they do these all the time. But again, that seller, I mean, there's dignity because that seller is going to still be in that community,
Mhm.
unless they've decided to, move to Florida or Hawaii or whatever.
Mhm.
But it's like,
Right.
again, they're still going to be part of that community. Their employees are still going to be in that community and everything. And just kind of remembering, that this transaction means something to that seller. I mean, it's something big to them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel, one last question for you before we kind of start to wrap up our time here. When people are thinking about, now that they've identified value for them and what their priorities are and all of that stuff, you know, can you give us you've already given us one example, but can you give us some other examples or just rough idea of, hey, when people really take the process seriously, how much of a difference does that make either in terms of the tangible results or the intangible results in terms of their outcomes? Basically, why is it worth it?
Why is it worth it? Yeah. I think it's worth it
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you want to be able to sell your business for the amount that you want to whom you want,
Yeah.
you have to plan.
Mhm.
And I think it's worth it because in many situations, even if it may not seem like it on the surface, there's the possibility to be able to sell to your key employees or to
Mhm.
keep it in the family or to sell it for a bunch of money or
Hmm.
whatever it might be, but only if you prepare and plan for that. And
Yeah.
so I think the saddest thing that happens, I think, a lot is that people, again, they just tread water. They don't take action
Hmm.
because they don't know what to do. It's a tough topic, and then some external thing happens. Somebody gets sick, something happens, and they now have a fire sale, and now they
Right.
don't have any options except for one or two, or closing the business, or an asset sale, or liquidation. And then their life's work is not uh, it's just gone, right?
Right.
And um, so I will give an example personally, I guess. My grandfather started a business that similarly, um, when he passed, they he had done some transition things, but they hadn't fully set up a great next generation. They had too high customer concentration, different things like that. And my uncles and things, they worked hard. They did a lot of good work, but at the end of the day, they ended up having to close the doors. That was while I was in college. And it was a great, healthy, strong, great business. And that then just the lack of thinking through things from a big picture caused the company to fail, and lots of people lost their jobs, and it's really hard still for our family, to think about what could have been.
Was that why you got into this work that you're doing now? It's kind of funny because you are in that place now to actually help transition that.
I think it was subconscious.
Yeah, subconscious.
I actually, when I started this work, I was doing just a lot of strategic planning and things, and I didn't really want to get into the family business stuff. And then for whatever reason, it came around, and I've found a passion for it. So it definitely is there, and I think was a driving force, maybe even a fear of mine getting involved, but it's something that I don't want to see happen to other businesses.
Yeah, no, powerful story.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, for those who are listening, the ability to plan and get the right resources, the right advice, and then actually put that into motion, I mean, can change your family story for generations.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't plan and you don't get advice and the process just sort of happens to you instead, it can change your family story for generations. And it's such a sacred moment, I think, for a lot of people to be entrusted as a business owner with that opportunity to build something that you can actually transition either to family or you can transition to somebody else. And just really beautiful things can happen when that happens really well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Daniel, thank you for taking time to join us today. As we close out, 2 questions. What's one great tip that you have for buyers, and what's one great tip that you have for sellers?
Oh, okay. Sellers, let's see. Great tip. Get your business valued. I think it's kind of a funny one. I mean, it's planned. There's a lot that you could say, but the thing is, even in family business transitions, one side thinks it's worth this, the other side thinks it's worth this. They're both thinking they're giving in or treating the other side well, and both are disappointed if you can have a third party say, like, this is what it's worth.
Because that gives
then you can plan for it all.
Exactly, you can plan for it. That's the thing. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. How about for buyers?
For buyers, I think, kind of like Jacob mentioned, I think don't discount the culture. Don't discount the people and the culture and how integral that is to the success of a future business.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in again. The work that you're doing, either as you prepare to buy or you prepare to sell, or as you just continue to grow your business, it makes such a huge difference. Communities thrive because great businesses have great leaders and they have great transitions. And we hope that as you continue to do all of that, that you'll continue to pick up some valuable insights here. We appreciate you tuning in because it makes a big difference. Have a great deal.
Thank you for joining us today. For future episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please check out our website at www.goforemanlaw.com/learning.